The silver ship appeared above Earth without warning. It was massive, bigger than any human space station, and it moved with the deadly grace of a predator. The alien vessel settled into orbit like it owned the space around the small blue planet. Ambassador. Kethavar stood in the ship's main chamber, his tall frame covered in the ceremonial armor of the Zephyrian Empire. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes glowed with an inner light that most species found terrifying. He had delivered ultimatums to 47 worlds before this one. Each time, the result was the same: fear, panic, and then surrender. The humans were no different, he was sure. They were a young species, barely out of their home system. Their technology was primitive. Their ships used simple fusion drives. They had no energy shields, no quantum weapons, no stellar engineering. They were insects compared to the mighty Zephyrian Empire. "Prepare the transmission chamber," Kethavar ordered his aide. "Let us get this over with quickly." The aide, a younger Zephyrian named Velmar, bowed low. "Yes, Ambassador. The humans have agreed to meet with you. They call their leadership the United Earth Defense Council." Kethavar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Defense Council? How amusing! What do they think they can defend against us?" The meeting took place in a simple room on a human space station. Kethavar was surprised by how basic everything looked. The walls were metal, painted white. The furniture was made of wood and cloth. There were no energy fields, no floating displays, no quantum processors. It was like stepping back in time 1,000 years. Secretary General Martinez sat across from him at a plain table. She was a middle-aged human woman with graying hair and calm brown eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations. Behind her stood 3 other humans, equally plain and unremarkable. "Welcome to Earth Space, Ambassador," Martinez said in perfect Zephyrian. "Please sit down." Kethavar remained standing. It was part of the ritual. He activated his personal display, and holographic images filled the room. The first image showed the Zephyrian fleet approaching Earth. 200 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a city. The second image showed the complete destruction of Arcturus Prime, a world that had refused to surrender just 5 years ago. "I am Ambassador Kethavar of the Zephyrian Empire," he began, his voice echoing with artificial amplification. "I bring greetings from Emperor Zonthak, ruler of 7 star systems and conqueror of 47 worlds." The humans watched silently. Kethavar had expected fear by now. Usually, species began trembling when they saw the fleet. Some fainted when they saw what happened to Arcturus Prime. But these humans just sat there, watching him with those strange, calm eyes. "Your species has been judged suitable for incorporation into the Empire," Kethavar continued. "You will surrender, unconditionally, within 72 standard galactic hours. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your governments will be dissolved. Your population will be relocated to serve the greater glory of the Empire." He paused for effect. This was usually when the begging started. "If you refuse," he said, "your world will share the fate of Arcturus Prime. Total annihilation. Every city burned, every ship destroyed, every human dead. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum." The room fell silent. Kethavar watched the humans carefully. Martinez leaned back in her chair and picked up a simple cup of what appeared to be coffee. She took a sip, set the cup down, and looked directly at him. "Thank you for the message, Ambassador," she said. "We decline." Kethavar blinked. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "We decline your ultimatum," Martinez repeated. "Earth will not surrender. Please withdraw your forces from our system within 48 hours, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The silence that followed was deafening. Kethavar stared at the human woman, trying to understand what he had just heard. In 47 previous conquests, No species had ever refused. Not when they saw the fleet. Not when they understood the consequences. You don't understand, Kethvar said slowly. We have 200 warships. Each one carries enough firepower to crack your planet's crust. Your entire military couldn't damage a single one of our vessels. One of the humans behind Martinez stepped forward. He was a tall man with silver hair and the bearing of a soldier. I'm Admiral Chen, commander of the Earth Defense Force, he said. We understand your capabilities perfectly, Ambassador. The question is, do you understand ours? Kethvar's aide, Velmar, whispered urgently in his ear. Sir, perhaps they don't comprehend the scope of our power. Shall I show them the recordings from the Vegan massacre? But Kethvar waved him away. He leaned forward, his glowing eyes fixed on Martinez. You cannot be serious. You're talking about fighting the Zephyrian Empire. We have crushed civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than yours. Martinez stood up slowly. She was much smaller than Kethvar, but somehow her presence filled the room. Ambassador, let me be very clear. We are not afraid of you. We are not impressed by your threats. And we are not going to surrender. She walked to a window that looked out into space. Earth hung below them, blue and white and beautiful. You see that planet down there? That's our home. Every human who has ever lived was born on that world or came from people who were born on that world. We have fought wars for thousands of years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. She turned back to face him. Do you really think we're going to roll over for you just because you have big ships? Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before during an ultimatum delivery. Uncertainty. These humans were not reacting the way conquered species were supposed to react. They showed no fear, no panic, no desperate attempts to negotiate for mercy. You have no idea what you're facing, he said, his voice rising. The Ninth Fleet has never been defeated. Admiral Zondar commands ships that could turn your sun into a supernova. Martinez smiled, and Kethvar found the expression somehow more unsettling than any scream of terror. Ambassador, you have 47 hours and 23 minutes remaining. We suggest you use them wisely. Admiral Chen stepped forward again. I'll escort you back to your ship, Ambassador. I'm sure you have reports to send. As they walked through the station's corridors, Kethvar tried one more time. Admiral, surely you can see reason. Your species could have a place in the Empire. Serve faithfully, and humans could rise to positions of authority. Fight us, and you'll all be dead within a week. Chen stopped walking and looked at him. Tell me, Ambassador, how many species have you conquered without firing a shot? 39. Kethvar answered automatically. And how many fought back? 8. Kethvar paused. They were all destroyed. Chen nodded. I thought so. Well, you're about to meet your first species that fought back and won. Impossible, Kethvar snapped. You have primitive technology, chemical rockets and fusion reactors. We have quantum weapons and reality manipulators. Yes, Chen said simply. You do, and it won't matter. They reached the docking bay where Kethvar's shuttle waited. As the ambassador prepared to leave, Chen spoke one more time. Ambassador, when you report back to your fleet commander, make sure you tell him something important. We tried to warn you. What happens next is your choice, not ours. Kethvar climbed into his shuttle, his mind spinning. In 47 conquests, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. As his shuttle headed back to the Ninth Fleet, he found himself hoping it was stupidity, because if it was bravery backed by capability, the Empire was about to face something it had never encountered before, a species that refused to surrender and believed it could win. Admiral Zondar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought called Eternal Conquest. Through the viewing ports, he could see the rest of the Ninth Fleet taking positions around Earth's moon. 200 warships, each one a masterpiece of Zephyrian engineering. The smallest destroyer was larger than anything humans had ever built. The largest dreadnoughts could crack planets. "Status report," Zondar commanded. His tactical officer, Commander Kethron, consulted his displays. "All ships in position, Admiral. The humans have deployed their entire fleet to intercept us. 43 vessels total." Zondar almost laughed. 43 ships against 200. It was like watching insects prepare to fight a storm. "Show me their fleet." The main screen lit up with tactical displays of the human ships. Zondar studied them with the eye of someone who had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. They were pathetic. Simple metal hulls with primitive fusion drives. No energy shields that his sensors could detect. Their largest ship was barely the size of a Zephyrian escort. "What are they armed with?" he asked. "Kinetic weapons, mostly," Kethran replied. "Some missile systems, nuclear warheads, but old-style fission devices. Nothing that could penetrate our shields." "And their formation?" Kethran highlighted the human fleet positions on the display. "Loose defensive screen between us and their planet. They're not even trying to concentrate their firepower." Zondar shook his head. Either the humans were complete amateurs at space warfare, or they had some strategy he couldn't see. Given their technology level, he assumed it was the former. "Sir," the communications officer spoke up, "we are receiving a transmission from Ambassador Kethvar's ship." "Put him through." Kethvar's image appeared on the screen. The ambassador looked troubled, which was unusual. Kethvar had delivered ultimatums to dozens of worlds. Nothing should have disturbed him. "Admiral," Kethvar said, "I've completed my mission. The humans have refused to surrender." "Of course they have," Zondar replied. "They always refuse at first." "What was their reaction when you showed them our fleet?" Kethvar hesitated. "That's what troubles me, Admiral. They showed no fear. Their leader, a woman named Martinez, was completely calm. She even gave us an ultimatum of our own." "They gave us an ultimatum?" Zondar laughed. "What did they demand?" "That we withdraw from their system within 48 hours. This time, Zondar's laughter was genuine. "Withdraw? These primitives ordered the Ninth Fleet to withdraw. What did you tell them?" "I explained our capabilities, sir. I showed them the destruction of Arcturus Prime. I made it clear what would happen if they resisted." Kethvar paused. "They didn't care, Admiral. They acted like they expected to win." Zondar studied his old friend's face on the screen. Kethvar was many things, but he was not given to imagination or fear. If he was troubled, there might be a reason. "Did they demonstrate any weapons?" Zondar asked. "Show any technology we haven't seen?" "No, sir. Everything appeared primitive. But, Admiral, there was something about them. The way they spoke, the way they acted. It was like they knew something we didn't." "What they know," Zondar said firmly, "is that they're about to die. How much time is left on their ultimatum?" 18 hours, sir." "Perfect. That gives us time to get into optimal firing positions. We'll begin bombardment the moment their deadline expires." The next 18 hours passed slowly. Zondar watched as his fleet moved into perfect attack formation. The humans made no aggressive moves. Their ships held position between the Ninth Fleet and Earth, but they didn't advance or try to target Zephyrian vessels. They just waited. It was the strangest thing Zondar had ever seen in space combat. Usually, when faced with overwhelming force, species either surrendered immediately or made desperate attacks hoping to take some enemies with them. The humans did neither. They simply waited, as if they had all the time in the world. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Let's hear what they have to say." The screen showed a human male in a simple blue uniform. He appeared to be standing on the bridge of one of their primitive ships. Behind him, Zondar could see other humans working at basic control panels. "I'm Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force," the human said. "Am I speaking to the commander of the invading fleet?" "You are?" Zondar replied. "I am Admiral Zondar of the Ninth Fleet. Your ultimatum deadline has passed. You have one final chance to surrender before we destroy your entire civilization." Chen smiled, and Zondar found the expression oddly unsettling. "Admiral, your 48-hour deadline expired 7 minutes ago. You are now illegally occupying our space. I am ordering you to withdraw immediately." "You're ordering me?" Zondar couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Human, do you see my fleet? 200 warships. Each one could destroy your largest city. And you're giving me orders?" "Yes," Chen said simply. "I am. Because unlike you, Admiral, I know what's about to happen." "What's about to happen," Zondar said, "is the complete annihilation of your species." Chen shook his head. "No, Admiral. What's about to happen is that you're going to attack us, and then you're going to learn why humanity spent so long hiding among the stars." "Hiding?" Zondar laughed. "You weren't hiding. You were primitives who couldn't even leave your home system until recently." "We've been watching your empire for 40 years, Admiral," Chen said quietly. "We know about every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, every genocide you've committed. We've been waiting for someone to threaten Earth so we could stop you." Zondar felt a chill run down his spine. The human spoke with such calm certainty. It was unnatural. Any other species would be screaming or begging by now. "You're bluffing," Zondar said. "You have nothing. Primitive ships, primitive weapons, primitive defenses." "Admiral," Chen said, "I'm going to make this very simple for you. In 60 seconds, I'm going to order my fleet to open fire. When that happens, you'll have exactly one chance to surrender before we destroy every ship in your fleet." Zondar stared at the screen. "You'll give us a chance to surrender? You have 43 ships against 200 and you think we'll surrender to you?" "I'm hoping you will," Chen said. "Because the alternative is going to be very unpleasant for everyone involved." "You're insane," Zondar said. "Maybe," Chen replied. "We'll find out in 30 seconds. Zondar cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, prepare to fire. Target their flagship first. Let's end this quickly." 15 seconds to firing range, Admiral." Zondar watched the countdown on his tactical display. In a few moments, this strange conversation would be over. The human fleet would be debris, and Earth would burn. It would be another victory for the Empire, though perhaps a more puzzling one than usual. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, suddenly. "I'm reading strange energy signatures from the human ships. What kind of signatures?" "I'm not sure, sir. They're like nothing in our database." Zondar frowned. "Are they powering weapons?" "Unknown, sir. The readings don't match any known weapon system." "Sir," the weapons officer announced, "we're in firing range." Zondar looked at the human fleet on his display. 43 small, primitive ships against the might of the Ninth Fleet. It should be slaughter. But something about Admiral Chen's confidence bothered him. "Admiral!" the communications officer spoke up. "The humans are transmitting again." "Put it through." Chen's face reappeared on the screen. "Time's up, Admiral. Last chance to withdraw." Zondar made his decision. "All ships open fire! Destroy!" "The human fleet." The response was immediate. 200 Zephyrian warships unleashed their weapons at once. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, quantum torpedoes that could phase through any known defense, gravity missiles that could crush titanium like paper. The combined firepower of the Ninth Fleet lit up space like a new star. The beams reached the human flagship, a modest vessel called the HYF Indomitable. And then something impossible happened. The weapons stopped. All of them. Every beam, every missile, every quantum torpedo simply vanished as if they had never existed. On his screen, Admiral Chen smiled again. Admiral Zondar, you just made a very poor decision. Now let me show you what human weapons actually look like. Admiral Zondar stared at his tactical displays in complete disbelief. The readings made no sense. His entire fleet had just fired enough energy to crack a planet, and the human ships hadn't even been scratched. Every weapon had simply vanished. "Before impact, report!" he barked at his sensor officer. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy distortions around the human vessels," the officer replied, his voice shaking. "It's like they're surrounded by some kind of field that destroys incoming attacks." "Impossible," Zondar muttered. "No known technology can simply eliminate quantum weapons." "Admiral," the weapons officer called out, "the humans are returning fire." On the main screen, Zondar watched as the human fleet launched what appeared to be simple missiles. They moved slowly compared to Zephyrian weapons, almost lazily drifting through space toward his ships. There were only a few dozen of them, nothing that should threaten his massive fleet. "Defensive systems online," he ordered. "Those missiles won't even scratch our shields." But as he watched, something strange happened. The first human missile reached the Dreadnought Conqueror, one of his most powerful ships. Instead of exploding against the energy shields, the missile passed right through them, as if they didn't exist. It struck the hull with no visible flash, no explosion, nothing dramatic at all. Then the Conqueror went dark. Every light on the massive warship went out. The engine glow died. The weapon systems powered down. In seconds, the mighty Dreadnought became nothing more than a dead chunk of metal drifting in space. "Conqueror, report!" Zondar shouted into his communicator. Static answered him. "Sir," his communications officer said, "I'm detecting life signs aboard the Conqueror, but no power readings at all. It's like their entire energy grid just died." More, human missiles were reaching his ships now. Each one behaved the same way, passing through shields like they were made of air. The destroyer, Swift Death, was hit next, and it suffered the same fate as Conqueror. Total power loss, complete system failure. "How are they doing this?" Zondar demanded. "Unknown, sir," his science officer replied. "The missiles appear to disrupt quantum energy fields at the molecular level. I've never seen anything like it." "All ships! Evasive maneuvers!" Zondar commanded. "Don't let those missiles hit you!" But the human weapons weren't finished surprising him. As he watched, a second wave of missiles launched from the human fleet. These looked different, glowing with a strange blue light. The first one struck the heavy cruiser Dominator. What happened next would haunt Zondar for the rest of his life. The Dominator began to age, rapidly. The hull, which had been shining new metal moments before, started to rust and corrode. Sections began to fall away as if the ship was thousands of years old. The crew's panic-filled transmissions grew weaker and more confused as they aged decades in minutes. "By the Emperor's blood," Zondar whispered. "They're weaponizing time." A third wave of human missiles launched. These glowed with a soft white light, and when they struck their targets, something even worse happened. The battleship Eternal Glory was hit by one of these new weapons, and a perfect sphere of nothingness appeared in its center. The matter that had been there simply ceased to exist, leaving a hole that went completely through the ship. "Matter conversion weapons," his science officer said in a horrified whisper. "They're turning our ship's atoms into pure energy." Zondar's fleet was dying around him, not exploding in glorious battle, not fighting to the last warrior as Zephyrian ships were supposed to do. They were being methodically disabled or destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. Some ships went dark and dead. Others aged into scrap, metal. Still others had pieces of themselves simply deleted from reality. "All ships, scatter," Zondar ordered. "Break formation and engage at maximum range." But it didn't matter. The human weapons seemed to ignore distance, shields, and armor. Equally, The dreadnought Infinite Power tried to jump to faster-than-light speed to escape, but a human missile caught it mid-jump. The ship appeared and disappeared in flashes, caught between dimensions until it finally tore itself apart. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 60% of the fleet. The humans haven't even been scratched." Zondar looked at his displays showing the battle. It wasn't a battle at all. It was an execution. His mighty Ninth Fleet, conqueror of worlds, was being casually destroyed by weapons he couldn't understand. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again. He looked calm, almost sad. "Admiral Zondar," Chen said, "I'm going to offer you something we've never offered to an aggressive species before. Surrender now and we'll stop firing. You're surviving. Crew will be rescued and treated well. You have my word on that." "Treated well?" Zondar couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're destroying my fleet." "We're disabling your fleet," Chen corrected. "If we wanted to destroy it, you'd all be dead already. These are our non-lethal weapons, Admiral." "Non-lethal?" Zondar stared at the screen. "My ships are being torn apart." "Your ships are being neutralized," Chen said patiently. "Most of your crews are still alive. The time dilation weapons are set to non-fatal aging. The matter converters are targeting empty sections of hull. We're trying very hard not to kill anyone." Zondar felt his world shifting around him. Non-lethal weapons. The humans were destroying the most powerful fleet in the galaxy with weapons they considered non-lethal. "What are your lethal weapons like?" he asked in a whisper. Chen's expression grew very serious. "You don't want to find out, Admiral. Please, order your ships to surrender. We can stop this right now." Zondar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. Through the viewports, he could see the wreckage of his fleet. Ships that had never known defeat, reduced to drifting hulks in a matter of minutes. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "our main batteries are still operational. We could target their planet directly." For a moment, Zondar considered it. One final strike at Earth itself, to show these humans that the Zephyrian Empire didn't surrender without extracting a price. "Admiral," Chen said, as if reading his thoughts, "I strongly advise against targeting our planet. You've seen our defensive weapons. Now you're thinking about our planetary defense systems. Don't." "You can't defend an entire world," Zondar said. "We can," Chen replied simply. "But if you attack Earth, we'll stop being nice to you. Your crews will start dying. Your ships will be completely destroyed instead of just disabled. Is your pride worth that many lives?" Zondar closed his eyes. In 3 centuries of military service, he had never faced a decision like this. Surrender to primitives or watch his entire fleet die for nothing. "All ships," he said quietly. "Stand down. Surrender to the human fleet." "Admiral?" his weapons officer asked in shock. "You heard me," Zondar said. "Power down all weapons. Send the surrender signal." On the screen, Admiral Chen nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. That was the right choice. We'll begin rescue operations immediately." As human ships moved to help the damaged Zephyrian vessels, Zondar slumped in his command chair. The Ninth Fleet was finished. 47 conquests, 3 centuries of victory, and it had all ended in 23 minutes against an enemy that considered planetary destruction a non-lethal option. "Sir," his communications officer said, "Ambassador Kethvar is requesting permission to speak with you." "Put him through." Kethavar's image appeared, and Zondar could see the shock in his old friend's eyes. "Admiral," Kethvar said, "what happened out there?" Zondar looked at the wreckage floating around them. "We found out why humanity was hiding among the stars, old friend. They weren't hiding because they were weak. They were hiding because they were waiting for someone foolish enough to threaten them. But our ships, our weapons, our shields, useless," Zondar said simply. "Completely useless. They have technology we can't even comprehend. And Kethvar? They were holding back. These were their non-lethal weapons. Kethvar stared at him. Non-lethal? They could have vaporized our entire fleet in seconds, Zondar said. Instead, they disabled us and offered medical aid. What kind of species does that? I don't know, Kethvar whispered. Neither do I, Zondar replied. But I think we're about to find out. Captain Veltar had commanded the Dreadnought Sovereign for 15 years. He had seen battles across 7 star systems. He had watched worlds burn and civilizations fall. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for waking up in a human medical bay. The room was clean and white with soft lighting that didn't hurt his eyes. Veltar lay on a comfortable bed, connected to machines that he didn't recognize, but which seemed to be monitoring his health. A human female in a white coat was checking readings on a display beside his bed. Good. You're awake, she said in perfect Zephyrian. How are you feeling, Captain? Veltar tried to sit up, then stopped as pain shot through his chest. Where am I? What happened to my ship? You're aboard the UES Mercy, the human said. I'm Dr. Sarah Kim. Your ship was caught in a quantum cascade when our weapons disabled your power core. You received a dangerous dose of radiation, but you're going to be fine. Veltar stared at her. You're treating me? Why? Dr. Kim looked surprised by the question. Because you're injured. That's what doctors do, Captain. We treat injured people. But I'm your enemy? No, Dr. Kim said quietly. You're a person who made some poor choices. That's very different. Veltar tried to process this. In the Zephyrian Empire, captured enemies were either executed or enslaved. They were never given medical treatment by their conquerors. My crew, he said. What happened to my crew? Most of them are fine, Dr. Kim assured him. We evacuated everyone from the ships that were too badly damaged. Your people are being housed on several of our vessels while we figure out how to get you home. Home? Veltar couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're sending us home? Of course. Where else would we send you? Before Veltar could answer, the door opened and another human entered. This one wore a military uniform, and Veltar recognized him from the battle transmissions. Admiral Chen, the human fleet commander. Captain Veltar, Chen said, nodding, politely. I'm glad to see you're recovering. I wanted to speak with you about the battle. Veltar tensed. Now the interrogation would begin. The humans would want to know about Zephyrian military secrets, fleet positions, weaknesses they could exploit. I will tell you nothing, Veltar said. Chen looked puzzled. I'm not here to interrogate you, Captain. I wanted to apologize. Apologize? Our weapons caused more damage than we intended, Chen explained. We're still learning how to use them against ships with your technology. Several of your crew members were hurt when your power core overloaded. That wasn't supposed to happen. Veltar stared at the human admiral. You're apologizing for not destroying us efficiently enough? I'm apologizing for not protecting your people during the battle, Chen said. We take full responsibility for any casualties. This was impossible. Veltar had been in dozens of battles. Victorious armies didn't apologize to their defeated enemies. They gloated, they demanded information, they imposed terms. I don't understand, Veltar said. You won. We lost. Why are you treating us like guests instead of prisoners? Chen pulled up a chair and sat down beside the bed. Captain, can I ask you something? In all the worlds your empire has conquered, how many of them actually attacked you first? Veltar thought about it. None. We always struck first. It's more efficient. And how many of those worlds had done anything to harm your people? Harm us? Veltar was confused. They didn't need to harm us. They had resources we needed, territory we wanted. So you attacked innocent civilizations and enslaved or killed their people because it was convenient? It's not personal, Veltar said. It's just how the Empire works. The strong rule the weak. That's natural law. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Captain, let me tell you something about humanity. For most of our history, we believed the same thing. The strong conquered the weak. Might made right. We fought wars constantly, enslaved each other, committed terrible atrocities because we thought it was natural. What changed? Veltar asked. We grew up, Chen said simply. We realized that just because you can hurt someone doesn't mean you should. We learned that strength without compassion is just brutality, and we decided we wanted to be better than that. Dr. Kim spoke up from where she was working on his medical chart. Captain, can I ask you something? Do you have a family back home? Yes, Veltar said cautiously. A mate and 2 offspring. What are their names? Why do you want to know? I'm just curious, Dr. Kim said. I have a family too, a husband and a daughter. Veltar studied her face. She seemed genuinely interested, not like someone trying to extract information. My mate is called Silwen. My offspring are Terval and Kinara. Those are beautiful names, Dr. Kim said. How old are your children? Terval is 23 standard years, Kinara is 18. Do they serve in the military? Terval does. He's a weapons officer on a destroyer in the 7th Fleet. Kinara is still in the academy. Dr. Kim nodded. I bet they're worried about you. We should send them a message letting them know you're safe. Veltar felt something twist in his chest. You would do that? Of course. No one should have to worry about their family. Over the next few days, Veltar talked with many humans. He expected propaganda, attempts to convert him to their cause, or at least some kind of recruitment effort. Instead, they just talked to him like a person. They asked about his home world, his family, his interests outside of military service. They shared stories about their own lives, their own families. Dr. Kim told him about her daughter, who wanted to be a scientist like her mother. Admiral Chen talked about his wife, who was a teacher back on Earth. A young human engineer named Marcus showed him pictures of his new baby son. It was during one of these conversations that Veltar finally asked the question that had been bothering him. Why are you doing this? He said to Dr. Kim. Why are you being kind to us? What do you mean? We came here to conquer your world. We would have enslaved your people, killed anyone who resisted. And you're treating us like honored guests. Why? Dr. Kim was quiet for a moment. Captain, do you know what we learned when we started monitoring galactic civilization? What? We learned that most species are good people trapped in bad systems. Your empire tells you that conquest is natural, that might makes right, that the strong should rule the weak. But that's not who you really are. She gestured to the medical bay around them. Look at how you've reacted to our kindness. You're not angry or plotting revenge. You're confused because this is how you think people should treat each other, but it's not how you've been taught to behave. Veltar considered this. It was true. The human's kindness felt right in a way that Empire doctrine never had. What happens now? He asked. Now we take you home, Dr. Kim said. All of you. We'll repair what ships we can and provide transport for those we can't. You'll get to see your family again. And then? And then you decide what kind of person you want to be. The Empire will probably tell you that humans are weak, that our compassion is a flaw to be exploited. But you'll know better. You'll know that we could have killed all of you in seconds, but we chose not to. You'll know that we treated you with kindness when we could have treated you with cruelty. Veltar thought about his children, about the empire they were growing up in, about the worlds they might be ordered to conquer someday. What if others don't believe us? He asked. What if the empire refuses to change? Dr. Kim's expression grew sad. Then you'll have to decide whether you want to be part of the problem or part of the solution. That night, as Veltar lay in his comfortable bed aboard the human ship, he stared out at the stars and thought about everything he had learned. The humans could have destroyed the 9th Fleet completely. They could have killed every Zephyrian in the system. Instead, they had shown mercy to their enemies and kindness to their prisoners. For the first time in his life, Captain Veltar began to wonder if the Zephyrian Empire was wrong about everything. 2 weeks later, as the human ships prepared to escort the Zephyrian survivors home, Admiral Chen visited Veltar one last time. "Captain," Chen said, "when you get back to your empire, they're going to ask you what happened here. What will you tell them?" Veltar looked out at the human fleet, at the ships that had destroyed his mighty dreadnought, and then saved his life. "I'll tell them the truth," he said, "that we met a species that could have destroyed us, but chose to save us instead, and that maybe it's time for the Empire to learn what real strength looks like." Emperor Zonthak sat on his crystal throne in the great palace of Zephyr Prime, listening to reports that made no sense. The Ninth Fleet destroyed. Admiral Zondar disgraced. 200 warships reduced to scrap by a species that barely had faster-than-light travel. "Impossible," he declared, his voice echoing through the throne room. "The survivors are lying to cover their cowardice." High Admiral Keth Zone, commander of all Zephyrian military forces, stood before the throne with a grim expression. "Your Imperial Majesty, I've interviewed dozens of survivors personally. Their stories all match. The humans have weapons beyond our understanding." "Beyond our understanding!" The Emperor's eyes glowed with anger. "We are the masters of 7 star systems. We have conquered 47 worlds. Some upstart species from a backwater planet cannot have superior technology. Nevertheless, Majesty, the evidence suggests cowardice and incompetence." Zonthak slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. "Summon Admiral Veldar. Have him take the home fleet to this Earth and finish what Zondar failed to do." Admiral Veldar, who had been standing quietly to one side, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider negotiation instead of—" "Negotiation?" The Emperor's voice rose to a roar. "The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with primitives. We conquer them." 3 hours later, the home fleet departed Zephyr Prime. 300 ships, the largest force the Empire had ever assembled. Every dreadnought, every battleship, every weapon of war they possessed. If the humans had somehow defeated the Ninth Fleet through trickery or luck, they would find the home fleet a very different opponent. Admiral Veldar commanded from the bridge of the super dreadnought Infinite Emperor. Unlike Zondar, he was taking no chances. His ships would attack from maximum range, target the human planet directly, and end this embarrassment quickly. The journey to Earth took 6 days. As they approached the Sol system, Veldar's sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. A single human ship was waiting for them, one small vessel against the entire home fleet. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the human ship is transmitting. Put it through." The main screen showed a familiar face. Secretary General Martinez, the human leader who had refused their ultimatum. She was sitting in what appeared to be a simple office, looking completely calm. "Greetings, Admiral Veldar," she said. "I'm Secretary General Martinez of the United Earth Defense Council. Welcome to our system." "I am Admiral Veldar of the Zephyrian Home Fleet," he replied. "I'm here to complete the conquest that the Ninth Fleet failed to accomplish." Martinez nodded. "Yes, we heard about what happened to Admiral Zondar's ships. Tragic, really. So many lives disrupted because of a simple misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? You seem to think we're enemies," Martinez said. "We're not. We're here to help you." Veldar laughed harshly. "Help us? You destroyed our fleet." "We disabled your fleet," Martinez corrected. "And then we provided medical care, comfortable quarters, and safe transport home for all survivors. Is that how enemies treat each other in your empire?" This gave Veldar pause. The reports from the Ninth Fleet survivors had mentioned the humans' strange kindness, but he had assumed it was propaganda or psychological warfare. "What do you want?" he asked. "We want to return your people," Martinez said. "All the survivors from the Ninth Fleet are aboard my ship. We also want to discuss the terms of your empire's immediate cessation of aggressive expansion and the liberation of all enslaved worlds." Veldar stared at the screen. "You want us to surrender? To you?" "We want you to stop hurting innocent people," Martinez said. "The galaxy is big enough for everyone, Admiral. There's no need for conquest and slavery." "The strong rule the weak," Veldar said automatically. "That is natural law." "No," Martinez said quietly. "That's what bullies tell themselves to justify their cruelty. The truly strong protect those who need protection." "Enough talk," Veldar declared. "You have one human ship against 300 Zephyrian warships. Surrender now or be destroyed." Martinez sighed. "Admiral, I'm going to show you something. Please pay attention." On Veldar's tactical display, every ship in his fleet suddenly went dark for exactly 60 seconds. All power, all weapons, all life support. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back online. "How?" Veldar whispered. "Admiral," Martinez said, "what you just experienced was a demonstration. We could have left your ships powerless. We could have disabled your life support permanently. We could have done much worse things. But we didn't, because we're not your enemies." Veldar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments in shock. The humans had just demonstrated that they could disable his entire fleet without firing a shot. "What are you?" he asked. "We're the species that's been watching your empire commit atrocities for 40 years, Martinez replied. "We're the people who decided that enough was enough. And we're the civilization that's going to ensure you never hurt anyone again." "You can't stop the empire," Veldar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Admiral, we just disabled your entire fleet with a single ship. How many fleets do you think we'd need to disable your empire?" The answer was obvious and terrifying. If the humans could do this to 300 ships, they could do it to 3,000 or 3 million. "What do you want from us?" Veldar asked quietly. "Peace," Martinez said. "Real peace, not the peace of conquest, but the peace of cooperation. You have a choice, Admiral. Return home and convince your emperor to negotiate, or watch your empire crumble as we systematically disable every aggressive fleet you send. And if we choose to negotiate, then we help you become the civilization you could be instead of the one you are. We share technology, knowledge, resources. We help you build a society based on cooperation instead of domination." Veldar thought about the survivors' reports. The humans had shown kindness to their enemies, mercy to their captives. They had treated wounded Zephyrians with the same care they gave their own people. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" he asked. "Because, Admiral," Martinez said, "if we wanted to destroy you, you'd already be dead." The transmission ended, and Veldar was left staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers waited for orders. 300 ships against one, and somehow he knew that the single human vessel could destroy them all. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the capital. Emperor Zonthok wants a report." Veldar thought about what he would tell his emperor. That the humans had weapons beyond imagination? That they could disable entire fleets without breaking a sweat? That they offered mercy instead of demanding vengeance? "Sir," the officer prompted. "Tell the emperor," Veldar said slowly, "that we need to talk. All of us. The entire High Command, and tell him to prepare for some very disturbing news." 2 days later, Veldar stood once again before the Crystal Throne. This time, he was not alone. Captain Veltar and a dozen other survivors from the Ninth Fleet stood with him. Together, they told their emperor the truth about humanity. "They could have killed us all," Veltar said. "Every ship, every crew member. Instead, they saved our lives and sent us home." "They have weapons that make our technology look like toys," added Commander Kethron. "But they used the weakest ones they had. They were trying not to hurt us." Emperor Zonthak listened in growing disbelief. Finally, he stood from his throne, his eyes blazing with fury. "Lies!" he shouted. "All lies! No species is that powerful. No civilization is that merciful." "Your Majesty," Veldar said quietly. "What if they are?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. What if humanity really was everything the survivors claimed? What if the Zephyrian Empire, for all its might and pride, was nothing more than a schoolyard bully faced with someone truly strong? "Majesty," High Admiral Kethzan spoke up, "we have a choice. We can continue our expansion and face whatever weapons the humans haven't shown us yet, or we can consider their offer of negotiation." "The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate," Zonthak declared. "Then the Zephyrian Empire will fall," Veltar said simply, "because the humans aren't going to let us continue enslaving innocent worlds, and we can't stop them." For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Zonthak felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Not of death or defeat, but of facing an opponent who was truly superior in every way that mattered. "What do they want?" he asked quietly. "Peace," Veldar replied. "Real peace. The end of conquest. The freedom of enslaved worlds. A chance for the Empire to become something better." "And if we refuse?" Veltar thought of Admiral Chen's calm confidence, of Dr. Kim's gentle kindness, of the human engineer who had shown him pictures of his baby son. "Then we learn what their real weapons look like," he said. "And I don't think any of us want that." The Emperor sank back onto his throne. Around him, the greatest military minds of the Empire waited for his decision. Outside, on 47 conquered worlds, enslaved populations toiled under Zephyrian rule, never knowing that their freedom might depend on one alien's choice. "Send a message to the humans," Zonthak said finally. "Tell them the Zephyrian Empire is willing to discuss terms." And across the galaxy, on a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system, humanity prepared to help an empire learn the difference between strength and cruelty, between power and wisdom.
The stars twinkled peacefully in the viewport as Admiral William Carter made his morning rounds on the bridge of the UES Valiant. It was another quiet day on patrol at the edge of human space. Humanity had spread to 3 solar systems beyond Earth, building colonies and research stations. For almost 30 years, there had been peace among the stars. "Status report, Lieutenant," Carter said, accepting a cup of coffee from his aide. "All systems normal, sir," said Lieutenant Jane Foster, her eyes scanning the displays. "Deep space. Sensors show nothing unusual. The research team on Europa just sent their weekly update. All proceeding as planned." Carter nodded. At 55, he had spent most of his life serving in the United Earth Defense Force. His gray hair and the lines around his eyes showed the years of service. What had once been a military focused on Earth's conflicts had evolved into a peacekeeping force that mainly escorted science vessels and protected trade routes. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Frank Riley, his hand suddenly pressing against his earpiece. "I'm picking up an emergency signal from Europa Station." Carter set down his coffee. "Put it through." The speakers crackled with static. Then a panicked voice broke through. "This is Europa Research Station. We are under attack. Unknown vessels, not matching any known configuration. They've disabled our—" The transmission cut off abruptly. "Get them back," Carter ordered, but Riley shook his head. "No signal, sir. The station's transponder has gone offline." The bridge fell silent. Carter's mind raced through possibilities. Pirates? Terrorists? Some kind of accident? "Set course for Europa, maximum speed. Alert all nearby vessels to converge." On those coordinates. Before the navigator could respond, multiple alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display lit up with warning signals. "Sir, massive energy signatures appearing near Tau Ceti," shouted the sensor officer. They're not using any known jump points." On the main screen, several strange vessels appeared seemingly out of nowhere. They were unlike anything Carter had ever seen, smooth, asymmetrical shapes that seemed to bend the light around them. with no visible engines or weapons. "Open a channel," Carter ordered. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral William Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space. State your intentions immediately." No response came. Instead, the alien ships accelerated toward the nearest human colony. "Sir, they're charging weapons," the tactical officer reported. "Red alert! All hands to battle stations." Carter grabbed the ship-wide comm. "This is not a drill. Prepare for combat." The Valiant's shields hummed to life as the crew scrambled to their positions. Carter watched in growing horror as the first alien beam struck the colony's orbital defense platform. The structure didn't just take damage, it disintegrated entirely. "Get me Earth Command now," Carter ordered. In Washington, D.C., President Sofia Rodriguez was in the middle of a council meeting when the emergency alert came through. The large screen on the wall switched from economic projections to a direct feed from the Valiant. "Madam President." Carter's voice was steady despite the chaos visible behind him. "We are under attack by unknown forces. Europa Station has been destroyed, and Tau Ceti colonies are being hit. These are not pirates or known entities. We are facing a full-scale invasion by an alien species." The council room erupted in shocked voices. Rodriguez raised her hand, silencing them. "What are their capabilities, Admiral?" "Far beyond ours," Carter admitted. "Their weapons cut through our strongest shields like they're not even there. I've ordered all civilian ships to retreat, but..." The transmission shook as the Valiant took a hit. "We need to evacuate the outer colonies immediately. These attackers show no interest in communication." "Do we have any idea who they are or what they want?" Rodriguez asked. "None, Madam President. They struck without warning or declaration." Intelligence Officer Catherine Bell stepped forward. "Madam President, initial analysis suggests their technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of our most advanced systems. The attack pattern indicates this isn't random. They're specifically targeting our military installations and major population centers." Rodriguez took a deep breath. In her 3 years as president of the United Earth government, she had faced trade disputes and minor conflicts, but nothing like this. "Admiral Carter, your priority is to save as many lives as possible. Begin evacuation procedures for all outer colonies. I'm declaring a state of emergency and activating Defense Protocol Omega." Across Earth, emergency broadcasts interrupted regular transmissions. Families gathered around screens to see their president's grim face delivering news that would change human history. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies," Rodriguez began. "1 hour ago, unknown alien forces launched an unprovoked attack against our outposts and colonies. We have confirmed the destruction of Europa Research Station and attacks on Tau Ceti settlements. These acts of aggression have resulted in thousands of casualties. In homes across Earth, shock and fear spread. In New Boston, Alan Summers, the Secretary of Defense, watched the address from his emergency bunker while coordinating with military commands worldwide. We do not yet know why these beings have chosen to attack us, but their intentions are clear," Rodriguez continued. "They seek our destruction. I have ordered the immediate evacuation of our outer settlements and the full mobilization of the United Earth Defense Force." Back on the Valiant, Admiral Carter was organizing a defensive line to cover the civilian exodus. 3 more UEDF ships had arrived, forming a protective screen around the evacuation vessels. "They're coming around for another pass, Lieutenant," Foster reported, her uniform now stained with blood from a minor head wound. Carter gripped the command rail. "Hold position. All power to forward shields. We need to give those transports 5 more minutes to jump to safety." The alien vessels approached with unnatural precision. The lead ship fired, and one of the human frigates simply came apart, its hull splitting into pieces as though cut by a giant invisible blade. "Sir, at this rate we won't last 5 minutes," the tactical officer said quietly. Carter's jaw clenched. "We'll last exactly as long as we need to. Every second we give those civilians is a second more they have to reach safety." On Earth, scientists were already analyzing the limited data coming in from the battles. Dr. Elijah Winters, head of the Advanced Physics Division at NASA, stared at the readings with growing concern. "These energy signatures don't make sense," he told his colleague Susan Rivera. "It's like they're manipulating gravity itself as a weapon." Rivera shook her head. We're decades away from even theoretical applications of such technology. If that's what they're using. She didn't finish the thought. As the first day of the attack ended, the human death toll reached 30,000. 7 colonies had gone silent. The UEDF had lost 23 ships with 14 more damaged beyond repair. In the war room beneath the White House, President Rodriguez looked at the grim faces around her. We need to understand what we're dealing with. More importantly, we need to find a way to fight back. Alan Summers nodded. They struck first thinking we would be an easy target. They're about to learn why that was their biggest mistake. Outside, the night sky seemed darker somehow, as humanity faced the stars not with wonder, but with the dawning realization that they were no longer alone, and the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. 6 months had passed since the first attack. Admiral William Carter stood on the observation deck of the Luna base, watching as another fleet of refugee ships arrived from the outer colonies. His uniform hung loose on his frame. He had lost. Weight and sleep had become a luxury he rarely enjoyed. That's the last group from Alpha Centauri, said Commander Dan Mitchell, joining him at the window. We've evacuated everyone we could. Carter nodded. The past months had been a non-stop retreat. The aliens, now identified as the Zalari, had pushed through human defenses with frightening efficiency. Every direct engagement had ended in heavy losses for Earth forces. How many ships did we lose covering their escape? Carter asked. 3, Mitchell replied, including the Dauntless. Carter closed his eyes briefly. Captain Gloria Wright and her crew had been friends, but grief was a luxury he couldn't afford either. The Dauntless bought time for 5,000 civilians. Remember that. Below them, in the vast underground complex of Luna Base, those civilians were being processed, assigned temporary quarters, and added to the growing population of refugees. Earth cities were already swelling with people who had lost everything. In the research wing of the base, Dr. Elijah Winters had barely left his laboratory in 3 days. His team was working around the clock, analyzing debris from Zalari ships destroyed in battle. It wasn't much. The aliens' vessels usually disappeared in a strange implosion when critically damaged, leaving little to study. Susan Rivera, his chief engineer, burst into the lab. Her eyes were bright with excitement, the first positive expression Carter had seen in weeks. We found something, she said, waving a tablet. The shield frequency patterns. They're not random. Winters took the tablet, scanning the data. You're right. There's a cycle. Every 73 seconds, there's a millisecond fluctuation in the lower bands. It's not much, Rivera admitted. But it's a weakness. If we could hit them with enough concentrated energy at exactly the right moment, we might break through. Winters finished. He looked up at her. This is the first good news in months. Let's bring it to Carter. On Earth, the changes were visible from space. Massive factories that had once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons and ships. In fields outside major cities, military training grounds expanded daily as new recruits learned to fight an enemy they barely understood. President Rodriguez was addressing the United Earth Council in the underground chamber that had replaced the White House as the seat of government. These Zalari have made no attempts at communication, she said. Their pattern is clear. They target our military assets first, then civilian infrastructure. They're methodical, and they're not interested in resources or surrender. This is extinction. Alan Summers, the Secretary of Defense, stood to speak. We've lost 14 colonies and 7 research outposts. We've been forced to abandon the entire Tau Ceti system. But we've also learned from every engagement. He gestured to the display showing Earth's defenses. We've doubled our production capacity. Every day we build more ships, more weapons. Our newest vessels incorporate what we've learned about Zalari attack patterns. Will it be enough? Asked one of the council members. Summers met the question with a steady gaze. 6 months ago they caught us unprepared. We didn't know they existed. Now we do. Now we're ready. In orbit around Jupiter, the remains of the Fourth Fleet had adopted a new strategy. Commander Peter Reeves had discovered that the giant planet's radiation interfered with Zilari sensors. His ships hid in the radiation belts, emerging only to strike at passing enemy vessels before disappearing again. "We can't beat them head-on," Reeves told his officers aboard the UES Sentinel, "but we can bleed them, make them pay for every inch of space." Lieutenant Kelly Barnes, his tactical officer, studied the holographic display showing a Zilari patrol route. "They're creatures of habit, same course every 31 hours. Then we'll be waiting for them," Reeves said. "Right here." He pointed to a spot where the patrol passed close to a particularly dense radiation band. "Prepare the new torpedoes. Let's see if Dr. Winter's theory about their shield frequencies holds up." On Mars, the military academy had been transformed. General Mary Dawson had created a new training program based on Earth's long history of guerrilla warfare. In a vast underground complex, soldiers learned to fight against technologically superior forces. "They have better ships, better weapons, better shields," Dawson told a group of new recruits. "But they have weaknesses too. They're predictable. They don't adapt quickly, and they've never fought humans before." She activated a hologram showing Zilari battle formations. "They fight like machines, following the same patterns. We need to fight like humans, unpredictable, creative, tenacious." Among the recruits was Sam Collins, a former college teacher who had lost his family when the Zilari destroyed the New Eden colony. "Will we ever take back what they took from us?" he asked. Dawson met his eyes. "That's why we're here. Not just to survive, to win." Back on Luna Base, Admiral Carter reviewed Rivera's findings with growing hope. "If this works, it could change everything. We'll need to modify our weapons," Rivera explained, "and timing will be critical. We'll have milliseconds to hit them during the shield fluctuations." Carter nodded. "How quickly can you implement this?" "We've already sent the specifications to Earth's production facilities," Winters said. "The first modified weapons should be ready within 2 weeks." Carter turned to look at the Earth hanging in space beyond the viewport. Blue oceans, white clouds, continents now crowded with refugees. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel something besides grim determination. "Let's bring this to President Rodriguez," he said. "And then I want to talk to Commander Reeves. Jupiter will be the perfect testing ground." That night, as the lights of Luna Base dimmed to simulate night, Carter found himself unable to sleep. Again. He walked the corridors, checking on personnel, stopping to speak with refugees, making mental notes of supplies needed and morale issues to address. He paused at the memorial wall, where photos and names of the fallen were displayed. 30,000 names from the first day, tens of thousands more since then. His fingers traced the image of the Europa research station, the first target. "They thought we'd break," he said quietly to the empty corridor. "They thought we'd surrender." A maintenance worker passing by stopped, recognizing the Admiral. "Sir, did you say something?" Carter turned. The man wore the patch of the Tau Ceti colonies on his uniform, another refugee who had found a way to serve. "I was just thinking," Carter said. "The Zilari struck first because they thought it would end us quickly, but they made a mistake." "What's that, sir?" Carter looked back at the memorial wall, then to the Earth visible through a nearby viewport. "They never studied our history. Humans have faced extinction before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars. We're still here." His voice hardened. "And we're not going anywhere." For the first time in months, Admiral William Carter slept through the night. Tomorrow, humanity would stop retreating. Tomorrow, they would start to fight back. 9 months into the war, a damaged Zilari ship drifted in Jupiter's orbit. It had survived an attack by Commander Reeves's guerrilla fleet, but just barely. Now it floated, engines dead, its strange hull reflecting the gas giant's swirling clouds. "Approach. With extreme caution," Admiral Carter ordered from the bridge of the UES Valiant. "Any sign of self-destruct sequences, pull back immediately." The boarding team, led by Lieutenant Kelly Barnes, moved across the gap between ships in specialized combat suits. Each carried weapons modified according to Dr. Winters's specifications, designed to work during the brief moments when Zalari shields fluctuated. "Hull breach secured," Barnes reported over the comm. "We're inside. No signs of life yet." Carter exchanged glances with Susan Rivera, who had insisted on joining this mission. After months of studying scraps of alien technology, she now had a chance to examine an intact ship. "Their environmental systems are still running," Barnes continued. "Atmosphere is breathable but different. Higher oxygen content, trace elements we don't recognize." "Proceed to the control center," Carter said. "Rivera, stay close to Barnes. Your priority is to download any data you can access." The team moved cautiously through corridors that seemed to bend in ways that confused human eyes. The ship's interior was smooth, with few sharp angles and controls that responded to touch rather than physical switches. "Sir," Barnes's voice came over the comm again. "We've found them. 3 Zalari, all dead. Appears to be from the battle damage." "What do they look like?" Carter asked, voicing the question all of humanity had wondered since the attacks began. There was a pause. "Humanoid, sir, but very different, taller than us, maybe 7 feet. Their skin appears metallic, almost crystalline. No visible mouth, just these sensor arrays where a face would be. Their limbs are longer, jointed differently." Rivera broke in, excitement in her voice. "Admiral, I've accessed their systems. I'm downloading everything now. Back on Earth, in the underground research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. Dr. Elijah Winters and his team worked day and night to understand the Zalari data. President Rodriguez and Secretary Summers visited frequently, eager for any advantage, against the enemy that had pushed humanity to the brink. "They've been watching us for decades," Winters explained, displaying information on a large screen, intercepting our transmissions, studying our expansion patterns. "Why attack now?" Rodriguez asked. "Why not earlier, or wait longer?" Winters pointed to a series of projections. According to their models, human technology was advancing too, quickly. Their simulations showed that within 50 years we would have developed capabilities equal to theirs. They decided on a preemptive strike. "They attacked us because we might become a threat someday?" Summers shook his head in disbelief. "Yes, but here's what's interesting," Winters continued. "Their models were strictly mathematical, based on technological development rates, resource consumption patterns, expansion speed. What they failed to include was human behavior under threat." Rivera, who had returned from the Jupiter mission, added, "Their models didn't account for our ability to adapt rapidly, to innovate when our backs are against the wall. So they expected us to collapse," Rodriguez said slowly, "to give up after the first wave of attacks." "Exactly." Winters displayed another image, what appeared to be a Zalari analysis of human response patterns. "They're confused by our continued resistance. According to their calculations, we should have sought terms of surrender months ago." In a training facility on Mars, General Mary Dawson watched as her soldiers practiced boarding maneuvers against a replica of a Zalari ship built using the data from the captured vessel. The soldiers moved with practiced precision, their tactics evolving based on real combat experiences. "They learn by pattern," Dawson explained to Sam Collins, who had proven himself an exceptional recruit. "The Zalari analyze data, develop a response, and stick to it. They don't improvise well." "And we do," Collins said, understanding. "It's our greatest strength," Dawson agreed. "Humans are messy, emotional, unpredictable. We try things that shouldn't work, take risks that seem illogical." On the Jupiter front, Commander Reeves's tactics had grown increasingly effective. His ships no longer just hid in radiation belts. They used the massive planet's gravity to slingshot them at unusual angles, attacking Zalari vessels from unexpected vectors. "They can't predict what they don't understand," Reeves told his crew after their third successful ambush. "And they don't understand human ingenuity." Admiral Carter stood before the United Earth Council, presenting the intelligence gathered from the captured ship and subsequent battles. "The Zalari communicate through a form of quantum entanglement," he explained. "It's why we couldn't intercept their transmissions, but now that we understand the principle, We can disrupt it. And their weapons? Asked a council member. Advanced, but not magical, Carter replied. They manipulate gravitational fields with incredible precision. Dr. Winter's team is already developing countermeasures. President Rodriguez leaned forward. Admiral, based on all we now know, can we win this war? Carter met her gaze steadily. 6 months ago, I would have said survival was our best hope. Today I believe we can do more than survive. We can defeat them. Later, in the privacy of his office, Carter reviewed the latest reports from across the solar system. Earth's factories were now producing ships with modified shields designed to counter Zalari weapons. The new targeting systems that could exploit the enemy's shield fluctuations were being installed on all vessels. He looked up as Susan Rivera entered carrying a data tablet. Admiral, you need to see this. She placed the tablet before him. It showed detailed analysis of Zalari communication patterns. They're concerned, she said. For the first time, they're uncertain about the outcome. Carter scrolled through the data. They're calling for additional forces. Yes, but look at this transmission from their command. Rivera highlighted a section. They don't understand why their initial models failed so completely. They're trying to recalculate likely outcomes, but they keep running into the same problem. Which is? Us. Rivera smiled slightly. Human unpredictability. They can't model it because it doesn't follow logical patterns. Our emotions, our willingness to sacrifice, our ability to find hope in the darkest moments. These aren't variables they can quantify. Carter leaned back in his chair. They studied our peaceful expansion, he said quietly. But they never studied our history of war. In the heart of what had once been NORAD, Dr. Nathan Hayes, a quantum physicist on Winter's team, was putting the finishing touches on a new weapon. Based on the principles of Zalari gravitational manipulation, but refined through human ingenuity, it created a controlled disruption in spacetime. The theory is sound, he told Rivera when she visited his lab. If it works, it will turn their own technology against them. Rivera examined the device. When can we test it? Hayes looked at her, with tired but determined eyes. We already have, on a small scale, in the lab. Now we need a real-world target. Carter called a meeting of his top commanders. On the display before them was a map of the solar system, showing Zalari positions. One location was highlighted, a forward base they had established on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. This is where we test Hayes' weapon, Carter said. This is where we show them that humanity is done retreating. He looked around at the faces of men and women who had fought for Earth's survival for nearly a year. The Zalari struck first because they believed it would be easy. It's time they learned why that was their biggest mistake. The battle for Saturn began on a Tuesday. Admiral Carter watched from the bridge of the UES Valiant as the human fleet assembled. 18 months after the first Zalari attack, Earth was finally ready to strike back. All ships report ready, sir, said Lieutenant Foster. Her face showed the scars from the first battle, but her eyes were clear and determined. Carter nodded. Begin Operation Typhoon. Across the fleet, engines flared as ships moved into attack formation. They had trained for this moment for weeks, practicing the complex maneuvers needed to catch the Zalari off guard. The plan relied on speed, surprise, and the new technologies developed from studying the alien ship. Zalari base on Titan has detected our approach, Foster reported. They're launching defensive vessels. The main screen showed the alien ships, rising from the orange moon's surface. They moved with their usual precision, forming a barrier between the human fleet and the base. Just as we expected, Carter said. Commander Reeves, begin Phase 2. From the far side of Saturn, hidden in the planet's rings, Reeves's ship suddenly accelerated. They had been positioned days earlier, waiting for this moment. The Zalari, focused on the main fleet approaching from the front, failed to detect this flanking movement until it was too late. Firing modified torpedoes, Reeves reported. The weapon struck the rear of the Zalari formation just as their shields cycled through the brief fluctuation that Susan Rivera had discovered. For the first time in the war, human weapons penetrated Zalari defenses cleanly. 3 alien ships exploded, creating gaps in their line. Carter didn't hesitate. Forward fleet, advance through the gaps. Boarding teams, prepare for deployment. The human ships surged forward. Unlike previous battles where they had been forced to retreat, this time they pressed the attack relentlessly. The Zalari, facing a strategy they had never encountered, struggled to adapt. On the surface of Titan, the Zalari base scrambled to respond. The alien commander sent urgent communications to their fleet, but the humans had deployed new jamming technology designed by Rivera's team. The messages never arrived. "We've reached optimal range for Hayes's weapon," Foster announced. Carter took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine whether months of work by Earth scientists would pay off. Target the main power core of the base. Fire when ready. The gravitational displacement weapon activated. There was no beam, no explosion, just a sphere of distorted space that expanded from the weapon's emitter. When it reached the Zalari base, the effects were immediate and devastating. Metal twisted. Structures collapsed inward. The entire facility seemed to fold in on itself like paper crumpling in an invisible hand. "Direct hit," Foster reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Base destroyed." A cheer went up across the bridge, quickly silenced by Carter's raised hand. "This isn't over. Boarding teams, proceed with your mission." Across the battlefield, specialized shuttles carried soldiers toward the disabled Zalari ships. Among them was Sam Collins, now a squad leader in General Dawson's forces. His team approached a large Zalari cruiser that had lost propulsion. "Remember your training," he told his soldiers as they prepared to board. "They're stronger than us, but they're not used to close combat. Use the confined spaces to your advantage." The boarding shuttle attached to the alien hull. Cutting tools made short work of the outer layer, and then the soldiers were inside, moving through the strange corridors with practiced efficiency. The Zalari they encountered were tall, just as described from the Jupiter mission. Their crystalline bodies reflected the light from the humans' weapons. They fought with energy weapons that fired gravitational pulses, but in the narrow passageways of their own ship, they couldn't bring their full technology to bear. Collins led his team toward the bridge. "Our objective is to capture, not destroy," he reminded them. "We need their navigational data." The battle lasted for 3 days. The human fleet suffered losses. 7 ships destroyed, many more damaged. But the Zalari losses were far greater. For the first time, they experienced defeat. In the aftermath, Carter stood in the command center aboard the Valiant, surveying the damage reports. "A costly victory," he said to Susan Rivera. "But a victory nonetheless," she replied. "And we've confirmed that Hayes's weapon works. The Zalari have never seen anything like it." Carter nodded. "What have we learned from the captured ships?" Rivera activated a display showing the data collected from the Zalari vessels. "Their main fleet is concentrated in the asteroid belt. They've been building a forward base there, preparing for a final push toward Earth. And their home system? We have the coordinates now." Rivera's eyes gleamed with fierce satisfaction. "We know where they came from." On Earth, President Rodriguez addressed the United Earth Council. The mood was cautiously optimistic for the first time since the war began. "The victory at Saturn marks a turning point," she said. "But we must be clear. This is not the end. The Zalari still outnumber us, and their technology remains superior in many ways." Alan Summers stood to speak. "What our forces have proven is that superior technology alone is not enough. The Zalari fight like machines, predictable, inflexible. Humans adapt, improvise, and overcome." In his laboratory, Dr. Nathan Hayes worked on an improved version of his gravitational weapon. The test at Titan had succeeded beyond expectations, but he knew they could make it more powerful. "The principle is similar to their own technology," he explained to Dr. Winters, "but we've taken it in a different direction. They use precision, carefully calculated fields that cut and slice. We've gone for raw power, creating localized space-time distortions that tear matter apart at the molecular level." Winters studied the designs. "They've never considered this application?" Hayes shook his head. Their approach is elegant, mathematical. Ours is messier, more human. On the far side of Mars, hidden from possible Zalari observation, Earth had been building a new fleet. Ships constructed using the knowledge gained from studying alien technology. Crews trained in the tactics that had proven successful at Saturn. General, Dawson inspected the troops that would man these vessels. You've all seen combat against the Zalari, she told them. You know their strengths and weaknesses. Most importantly, you know they can be beaten. Sam Collins stood among the soldiers. The battle at Titan had changed him, hardened him, but also given him something he had lost when New Eden fell: hope. Are we taking the fight to them? He asked Dawson after the briefing. She nodded. Admiral Carter is planning something big. We're not just defending anymore. Back on the Valiant, Carter studied the map of the solar system, now updated with the positions of all known Zalari forces. The victory at Saturn had pushed them back, disrupted their plans, but the aliens were regrouping. They would adapt, develop countermeasures. We need to strike again, he said to his officers, before they can recover. This time we target their main base in the asteroid belt. Foster looked up from her station. Sir, intelligence suggests they've reinforced that position significantly. It won't be like Titan. No, Carter agreed. It will be harder. But we have something they don't expect. He pointed to a section of the display showing Earth's shipyards. Hayes's weapon has been installed on all our new vessels, and we have another advantage. What's that, sir? Foster asked. Carter's expression was grim but determined. They still think they're fighting a primitive species. They struck first because their calculations told them we would be easy prey. It's time to show them just how wrong they were. 2 years after they struck first, the Zalari sent a message requesting peace talks. The communication arrived at Earth's defense headquarters on a quiet morning. Admiral William Carter read the message 3 times before he believed it was real. After the battle in the asteroid belt, after the destruction of the Zalari forward base, after Earth forces had pushed into the outer solar system, finally, the enemy wanted to talk. Could it be a trap? Asked President Rodriguez when the Earth Council gathered to discuss the message. Secretary Summers shook his head. Our intelligence suggests they're sincere. The battles at Saturn and the asteroid belt changed everything. They've never faced an enemy who could fight back after taking such heavy initial losses. Carter agreed. The Zalari expected us to surrender within months of their first attack. Instead, we adapted, we learned, and we turned their own technology against them. The meeting room fell silent as everyone considered the cost of those victories. Millions dead. Colonies destroyed. Earth itself forever changed by the influx of refugees and the rapid militarization of society. We will meet with them, Rodriguez decided, but not from a position of weakness. Admiral Carter, prepare the fleet. If this is genuine, we negotiate. If it's a trap, we finish this war once and for all. The meeting place was set. Neutral space between Mars and the asteroid belt. The HYF Valiant would represent Earth, while the Zalari would send a single diplomatic vessel. As the day approached, Carter found himself on the observation deck of the Valiant, looking at the stars. Lieutenant Foster joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thinking about how it all started, sir? She asked, handing him a cup. Carter nodded. Europa Station, that first day when they hit us without warning. He sipped the coffee. Did you ever imagine we'd be here, preparing for peace talks rather than another battle? Foster's scarred face showed a small smile. After that first year? No, sir. I thought we were fighting for survival, not victory. The Zalari ship arrived precisely on schedule. It was smaller than their warships but shared the same strange, angular design. Carter watched on the main screen as it approached, stopping at the agreed distance. They're sending a shuttle, Foster reported. 1 life form aboard. Carter turned to Susan Rivera, who had been essential in understanding Zalari technology, and now would be crucial in these negotiations. Are you ready? She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. I've been preparing for this meeting since we first captured their ship. I never thought I'd actually sit across from one of them and talk. The shuttle docked with the Valiant. Security teams stood ready, though the agreement allowed the Zalari envoy to come unarmed. The airlock cycled and then the door opened. The Zalari stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its body had the crystalline quality described in earlier reports, but up close Carter could see patterns flowing across its surface, perhaps their equivalent of expressions. Where a human would have a face, the alien had a complex array of sensors that glowed softly. "I am Nexus," the Zalari said, its voice, produced by a translation device. "I speak for the collective." Carter stepped forward. Admiral William Carter, representing Earth and her colonies. They moved to a conference room prepared for the meeting. The table was specially built with one side higher to accommodate the Zalari's greater height. Carter, Rivera, and 2 other officers sat across from the alien envoy. "You requested this meeting," Carter began. "We're listening." The Zalari's sensors pulsed. "The collective has reassessed the human species. Our initial calculations were flawed." "You mean you didn't expect us to fight back?" Rivera said flatly. "Correct." The Zalari's voice held no emotion through the translator. "Our models predicted capitulation within 3.7 months of initial contact. Instead, you adapted. You survived. You developed weapons that can harm us." Carter leaned forward. "You struck first without any attempt at communication. You destroyed our colonies and killed millions of our people. Why should we consider peace now?" The Zalari's surface patterns shifted rapidly. "Because continuation of this conflict is no longer logical for either species. Our remaining forces have retreated to our home system. Your ships now control this solar system. Neither side can achieve total victory without unacceptable losses." On screens throughout the Valiant, crews watched the meeting. On Earth and the Yao, remaining colonies, people gathered around broadcasts, holding their breath as humanity faced its enemy in conversation rather than combat for the first time. "We require more than just an end to hostilities," Carter said. "We need guarantees. Reparations for what was destroyed. Technology exchange to rebuild what was lost." "These terms are acceptable," the Zalari responded immediately. "The collective acknowledges error in our assessment of humanity. We did not understand your species." Rivera looked directly at the alien. "What didn't you understand?" "Your response to threat. Our studies showed your technological progression, your resource consumption, your expansion patterns. We calculated that you would become a threat to us within 50 years. Logic dictated a preemptive strike." "But you never studied our history," Carter said. "Our wars, our survival through ice ages and plagues and disasters." "We did not," the Zalari admitted. "We analyzed data, not behavior. We did not account for human determination when faced with extinction. We did not predict your capacity for rapid adaptation under pressure. Most significantly, we did not anticipate your development of the gravitational displacement weapon." Carter thought of Dr. Hayes, who had taken the Zalari's own technology and transformed it into something they had never imagined. "There is something else we require," Carter said. "A demilitarized zone between our territories, and your agreement that you will never again attack a human settlement." "Agreed." The Zalari's patterns stabilized. "We also request that you not deploy your displacement weapons against Zalari civilian populations." Carter nodded slowly. "Agreed." The formal negotiations continued for days, working out the details of territory boundaries, technology exchange, and monitoring systems. When the final agreement was ready, President Rodriguez herself traveled from Earth to sign it alongside the Zalari representative. After the ceremony, Carter found himself alone with the alien envoy. They stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. "There is a question I must ask," the Zalari said. "If our positions were reversed, if humans had the technological advantage and calculated that the Zalari would become a threat, would you have struck first as we did?" Carter considered the question carefully. "Some of us might have advised that course, but I believe we would have tried communication first, cooperation rather than destruction." "Because of emotion? Compassion?" "Partly," Carter admitted, "but also because of history. Humans have learned the hard way that preemptive action often creates the very enemy you feared. The Zolari's patterns shifted in what Carter had come to recognize as contemplation. We will study your history now, all of it, to ensure we do not make the same miscalculation with other species. As the Zolari shuttle departed the Valiant, Dr. Elijah Winters joined Carter on the bridge. "Do you think they truly understand now?" Winters asked. Carter watched the alien ship grow smaller against the backdrop of stars. "They understand enough, and so will anyone else who might consider Earth an easy target." He turned away from the viewport. "We didn't start this fight, but we finished it. In the months that followed, Earth began to rebuild. The technology gained from the Zolari helped restore damaged ecosystems and construct new habitats. The outer colonies were re-established, this time with better defenses. Admiral William Carter retired from active service. On his last day in uniform, he visited the memorial on Luna Base, now expanded to include all those lost in the war. He traced his fingers over the names, remembering Europa Station and that first terrible day. "They struck first," he said quietly, "to the memorial, and learned why you never push Earth too far."